How's it going here, and welcome to my camera comparison between the OnePlus 9 Pro and Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra. Now both these phones are on their latest system updates and the April 2021 security patches. So that means the OnePlus 9 Pro is on its 4th system update. So all the photos and videos you're going to see here were taken after those latest updates on both of these phones. And so we all know that the OnePlus 9 Pro probably won't be competing with the S21 Ultra on its zoom range. It just doesn't have the periscope zoom camera or the digital prowess of the S21 Ultra. But OnePlus really seemed to have focused on its main sensor as well as its 50 megapixel large ultra wide sensor. I think those are the areas you're going to see it compete very well with here against the S21 Ultra. But you've got your own eyes, so go ahead and check out all the photos and videos for yourself, like I always do. I'm going to show you a lot of them in both good and low light conditions. So go ahead and check it out and leave a comment after you've watched it all. Let me know which one you preferred, which one you liked better, and which one was the better overall camera system for your personal needs. So we're testing the video on the rear-facing cameras on the OnePlus 9 Pro and the Galaxy S21 Ultra here. Starting out with the ultra-wide angle lens on each. I'll pan around a little bit so you get a feel for how these ultra-wide angles compare here. You can check out the field of view, the color reproduction, etc. on these ultra-wide cameras here. And again, what's nice on both of these is you can switch between the ultra-wide and the main lens. So we'll go to main lens on the OnePlus and the main one-time lens on the S21 Ultra there. So again, I'll pan around here on this main lens, give you a feel for what that looks like here in this setting. And we'll go ahead and pan over here to the right and we'll test out zoom on that tower. So we'll move into 2 times on the OnePlus, and we can go to a 3 times optical on the S21 Ultra, and I can move into a max 10 times digital here on the OnePlus 9 Pro, and that's still looking a little bit grainy. At 1080p in my other video, this looked a little bit clearer after the updates. I was hoping after the 4th camera update here, this would clear up a little bit more, but at least it's very stable. And we can go into 10 times optical here on the S21 Ultra, which is looking pretty stable and much clearer here, obviously with a lossless optical zoom over the digital zoom on the OnePlus. And you can go even further all the way into a 20 times digital here on the S21 Ultra, which is actually looking very clear and sharp as well for a digital zoom. So we'll back out to the main lens here on the S21 and let's move into the main lens here on the OnePlus. So we'll test autofocus here on the post first with the OnePlus. Focused up pretty quick and refocused away nicely. Refocused pretty quickly, and it actually has a very nice shallow depth of field, a good amount of background blur and subject separation there, as you can see. And we'll go one more time here on the OnePlus. So pretty good autofocus here. I think it's much improved. I think it was a little bit slower before. And we'll go with the S21 Ultra. Really fast autofocus still on the S21, and also a very nice natural bokeh or background blur there. And one more time. And actually, let's take a look for the largest sensor on the S21. Let's compare to the OnePlus. OnePlus is actually showing a good amount of natural bokeh compared to the S21. It's keeping up fairly well considering how large the sensor on the S21 is. But we'll test some stabilization as I walk down the stairs here. And they're both stabilized here in 4K. So hopefully stabilization is looking pretty good on each of these. And I'll pull up here and we'll go ahead and pan around and see how the exposure handles into this afternoon sunlight here. Hey everyone, so now I'm testing out the super stable stabilization mode on the OnePlus 9 Pro versus the super steady mode on the Galaxy S21 Ultra. I'm just walking and holding these in front of me. And the super stable mode on the OnePlus 9 Pro, you can actually shoot up to 4K 30 frames per second while you're limited to 1080p on the S21 Ultra. So I'm just walking in, so both of these footage should look very stable obviously with this mode on. But let's go ahead and start jogging and see if we can stress out the stabilization and how steady both of these are able to hold. So that's just a quick stabilization test of each of these phones' super steady stabilization modes here. Hey everyone, so here's some front-facing footage from the OnePlus 9 Pro and the Galaxy S21 Ultra. The OnePlus 9 Pro has a max resolution of 1080p. It can shoot up to 60 frames per second, but right now it's in 30 frames because that's how this video will be exported. And the S21 Ultra can shoot up to 4K 30 frames per second, which is what you're seeing right now. And so obviously I'm starting out outdoors in a fairly controlled lighting situation that's in the shade, so it's not going to be too bright for the phones to handle. This is pretty much more or less ideal lighting conditions here outdoors for you to see what this looks like here. And I'll go ahead and pan around so you can see what it does in changing lighting conditions here. So we're going to have the sun behind me so you can kind of see what that does with the background and how the exposure is handling that. And right now, at least the viewfinder, S21 is handling that a little bit better. And I'll keep panning around here so you can see how this keeps going and changing. And now the sun's in front of me, and we'll see how that handles the background there now. Much more well exposed on the S21 Ultra, and the OnePlus 9 Pro improves as you would expect, but still blowing out the background a little bit more than I would like, at least in the viewfinder. This could be changing it once the video is actually done. But let's go ahead and start walking to test stabilization here to give you a feel for what that looks like on each of these front-facing cameras. And the other thing you'll notice is that the OnePlus 9 Pro has a much narrower field of view. It's much more cropped in. You can fit less in the frame than the S21 Ultra, even with these stabilization modes turned on. So let me know what you think of the front-facing camera footage here on the OnePlus 9 Pro and the S21 Ultra. Everyone, so here's a low light video test of the rear facing cameras on the OnePlus 9 Pro and the Galaxy S21 Ultra, starting at 4K 30 frames per second. And we're starting out with the ultra wide angle lens on each. So pan around to give you a sense for how the field of view looks on each of these phones and what the footage looks like as I pan back and forth here. And I'll go ahead and switch into the main lens here on each. So let's see if we can get to the OnePlus and on the S21. You can see how it handles that bright light over there. Both of them flaring it out, but the S21 Ultra is really flaring it out considerably more, and it's been doing that in all these tests. And let's go ahead and test some zoom. You can see the moon out there, so let's go to, that's 2 times on the OnePlus. It is 3 times on the S21 Ultra. And let's see a max 10 times zoom there on the OnePlus. Let's go 10 times optical on the S21 Ultra. And we can go to a max 20 times on the S21. And that's what that looks like compared to the 10 times on the OnePlus. So we'll back them out to the main lens. And we'll go ahead and pan this way. And we'll start walking to test stabilization. And so we're going to walk from that pretty well lit area over to a much darker area here as you round the corner. So you can kind of see how these phones handle that lighting transition from pretty ideal lighting or considerable amount of lighting over to a lot darker area here. And so as we round the corner, I'm looking through the viewfinder and they're both really brightening this up much more than it is to my eye. It's pretty dark out here right now. And at least again in the viewfinder, the S21 seems to have a little bit more noise, but they're both a bit noisy because of how much they're trying to brighten everything up here. And I'll pan up into the sky, which is decently dark, but there's a good amount of light pollution, so it's not completely pitch black. And we'll go ahead and pan over here to the left, so you can see what that looks like with a little bit more light down this alleyway in 4K. Everyone, so we're back with the same test. This time I'm testing out Nightscape on the OnePlus 9 Pro, which limits you to 1080p 30 frames per second. So I've matched up the S21 Ultra to its 1080p 30 frames per second video here. So that's what you're seeing. And Nightscape should be brightening up the scene a lot more, as its name suggests. And so it's going to flare out those lights a little bit more than it did at 4K. And that tree is looking a little bit more neon greenish because of how it's trying to brighten everything up. But let's go ahead and pan this way and we'll obviously test stabilization. But let's see how Nightscape holds up in this darker area. And if it gets any brighter than the S21 Ultra's regular 1080p here. So the S21 Ultra's 1080p footage should be looking brighter than 4K. It's 4K footage. That's pretty natural. And already it's getting darker, and I'm seeing, at least in the viewfinder, the Nightscape video on the OnePlus 9 Pro is getting really bright, and the greens are looking really bright green here. But it is definitely doing its job and lighting up everything much brighter than the S21 is, at least what I'm seeing in the viewfinder. So it's doing its job. It's pretty dark out this way, as you saw before, and Nightscape is definitely brightening this up a lot more than it had been. And you can see there into the night sky, lots of noise on the OnePlus because it's trying to brighten that up so much. And again, we'll pan over here to the left and you can see what that looks like here down this alleyway with some little more light. So again, Nightscape definitely brightening everything up here. Everyone, here's a low-light video test of the front-facing cameras between the OnePlus 9 Pro and Galaxy S21 Ultra. So I'm testing out the max resolution support on each of the front-facing cameras. So that's 1080p on the OnePlus and that's 4K on the S21 Ultra. And so you can see the S21 Ultra has a wider field of view. The OnePlus is much more cropped in here. And I'll pan around so you can see all the lights around me. So this is a pretty ideal lighting condition for low light anyway. And so I always like to start out here so you can see what some pretty good lighting looks like, and we'll start walking to test stabilization, and we'll walk into a much darker area so you can see how it looks like in that kind of a lighting situation as well. So hopefully the stabilization isn't looking too jittery here in low light. That tends to happen. And I'll start stepping up here, and the fountain is usually running, but it's not today, so we don't have that too much of that sound where it is, but it's just trickling. So it's not gonna be too much of a challenge for the mics here, but I'll go ahead and pan around this way so you can see the really bright street lights behind me and see how the front-facing cameras handle that, and a little bit of lens flare, but nothing too bad considering. And we'll pan around this way, and we'll end this in this lower light area so you can compare that side by side. So I hope you enjoyed all the photos and videos here from the OnePlus 9 Pro and Galaxy S21 Ultra. Again, the OnePlus 9 Pro was on its 4th system update, so hopefully these performed better since my last comparison with it. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below. Also, let me know which one you thought did better, which one you prefer, and we'll continue our conversation down there as we always do. And as always, thanks for watching.